The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Love and work. Work and love, that's all there is. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. The ego is not master in its own house. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. Where ID was, there ego shall be. One is very crazy when in love. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The goal of all life is death. The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement, that they seek power, success, and wealth for themselves and admire them in others, and that they underestimate what is of true value in life. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. They can transfer knowledge from teacher to student. Words enable the orator to sway his audience and dictate its decisions. Human beings are funny. They long to be with the person they love but refuse to admit openly. Some are afraid to show even the slightest sign of affection because of fear. Fear that their feelings may not be recognized, or even worse, returned. But one thing about human beings puzzles me the most is their conscious effort to be connected with the object of their affection, even if it kills them slowly within. The great question, which I have not been able to answer, is, what does a woman want? The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. When you are different from yourself, you do not have to worry about fitting in or not fitting in. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Wherever you go, you will find a poet has been there before you. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. The individual does actually carry on a double existence, one designed to serve his own purposes and another as a link in a chain, in which he serves against, or at any rate without, any volition of his own. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The ego is not master in its own house. The sexual life of adult women is a dark continent for psychology. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. The madman is a dreamer awake. The doctor should be opaque to his patients and, like a mirror, should show them nothing but what is shown to him. The ego is not sharply separated from the external world. It extends outward to include the other. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. One feels inclined to say that the intention that man should be happy is not included in the plan of creation. A person who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. What we call happiness in the strictest sense comes from the preferably sudden satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. The psychical, whatever its nature may be, is itself unconscious. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. The only thing that can heal the pain of the heart is love. The great question, which I have not been able to answer, is, what does a woman want? A woman should soften but not weaken a man. A man who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief.